Have some OC anons. Be me. Live in Vancouver, Canada. Working late, done at 12 a.m, it's a nice summer night so I decide to walk home instead of taking train. Totally alone on street. Derping along, see someone standing in front of an apartment block looking up at one of the windows. Figure is entirely black and very gangly, hands rather pale. Not moving. Just standing, head tilted back and staring. Whatever, homeless man. Carry on. As I get closer, person in black doesn't move. Just stares up at a window of the apartment block. Okay, that's weird. I'm about a quarter of a block away and this freak is standing in the middle of the sidewalk. How am I gonna get around him? Start to get a bad feeling in pit of stomach. Something isn't right here. Am I having a random panic attack? I start to do breathing. I focus on counting my breaths. 1 in, 2 out, 3 in, 4 out. Repeat. Feeling of wrongness gets stronger the closer and closer I get to this unmoving, gangly, tall figure in black. Feeling of badness is so strong I come to a stop. I'm just standing there with my heart thudding away in my chest, sick to my stomach with the feeling of no bad go away. Figure in black moves. Turns head towards me. Wrong bad awful feeling ramps up to 11. I physically take a step back. I can't see his face in the dark, but feeling his attention on me feels cold and mean. I take another step backwards. Figure takes a step towards me. I fucking turn and book it. Run about a block. Look back. No one there. I take the bus now.
My most nope story. Posted in another thread. 10 years old. My house. Me and 3 relatives are playing together. Go to basement. Follow my cousins and sister to room. Am behind everyone. There's a mirror on the floor leaning against the wall. Feel goosebumps, all my hairs stand up. Look down in the mirror. Notice something in the corner. A small boy huddled up in the corner holding his knees. Pale skin. Pure black eyes. Medium length dark hair. He stared at me. Frozen in fear for 15 seconds. Felt like forever. Scream and run to everyone telling them there's a ghost in the room behind us. Cover my eyes and run upstairs.
B3. Live in apartment with an inside balcony overlooking the first floor. Sofa on the first floor. When parents aren't home, jump 1.5 stories onto comfy sofa for fun, land safely on sofa with no injuries. Mom insists it was a dream. B8. Stay up for 3 days straight beating Pokemon Ruby. 4 a.m. on the third night, start seeing shadow people on the wall. They look like they're dancing, so I assume they're nice. Become friends with shadow people, guide their dancing and have a good time. Probably just hallucinations, but I was never scared of the dark afterwards because my friends were always with me. After we moved to a new house, it was no longer the same shadows/spirits, so while I wasn't scared of them, we didn't become friends either. B12. Lose my pens all the time in school, lost a whole pack in a week, so I just take pens other people forget. Pick up plastic pen off the floor. Not a big or anything recognizable, clear plastic with translucent blue tips. It looked cheap, so think nothing of it. Keep it in my pocket. Over the next week realize I haven't lost this pen, it's always in my pocket. A week or 2 goes by, I still have the pen, so I decide to test something. Throw it out the bus window on the way home. Next day I have it in my pocket. WTF. MFW, I threw it out the bus window almost every day after that, and it would always be in my pocket when I got to school the next day. One day it's not there anymore, kinda miss it even though it was a piece of crap that didn't write half the time.
I got one for you. This happened to me when I was like 9 or 10. I was a very tiny kid, probably around 55 or 60 pounds. In Jalisco, Mexico, visiting family. Hanging out with grandma. She's become older and has compromised strength that is associated with age. Wants to make tea. Go get bucket and take it to the well, no one else is home. Tie bucket, drop into the well. Hadn't rained in a while, so the well has a significantly lower water level than usual. Bucket fills up regardless. Pull up, becomes much heavier than anticipated. About halfway up, forearms are on fire. Weight of the bucket is tilting me slowly into the well as I struggle for leverage. Suddenly, my legs lift off the ground, and I fall into the well. About waist deep in, when suddenly, someone grabs my ankles. Pulls me up out of the well, the bucket falls to the water at the bottom. Get back on my feet, turn around to thank my grandma for pulling me out. Nobody's around.
Great uncle is a lord back home in Scotland, very rich, very upper class. When I was 8 to 13 years old, he lived by himself in a gigantic castle outside of Aberdeen, and sometimes I would visit when my parents went on holidays. He only lived in one half of said castle, the half he lived in was fully furnished. The other half was left in utter disrepair and ruin. He never let us in there and refused to talk about it at all if we asked him questions. He just ignored us like parents do when they're not listening. He also hated us trying to get into the underground parts of the castle, but that was probably only because he chucked all his old furniture in there and the place smelled whenever you opened the door. Anyway, one day I decided to venture to the other half of the castle. The only entrance is through the back door, as all doors leading to the forbidden parts were made into walls. Back door is glass paned and about 100 years old. Try handle. Locked. Crap. Peer through window and door. The room I saw was furnished similarly to the rest of the castle, only very dark and obviously going to ruin. Go back to main castle. Great uncle saw me go there. Tells me he sees a ghost of one of his friends regularly at the foot of his bed at night. Ghost chats with him but always tells him never to go to the other part of the castle. That part scared me half to death. I remember thinking that I could have died or something that night. To add to the creepiness, I drove past that castle recently when visiting a friend at uni. My great uncle had moved away by this point, and the entire forbidden half of the castle was gone. Apparently the new owners had had trouble with all the same rooms my great uncle and his friend did.
Posted this in a different thread, but judging from the subject matter, this one seems more suitable for it. Be in my early teens. Watch TV before going to bed. Wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of night, feel this urge to walk into the living room. Everything is pitch black, but I have no issues navigating my way towards the windows overlooking the backyard. Everything suddenly goes cold, like I've stepped into a freezer, but strangely enough it's not uncomfortable at all. Instead it feels liberating and I'm light as a feather. I look outside and in the middle of the yard I see a shrouded figure, all black with no visible face. I can't see a freaking face, but I feel it staring at me intensely. I black out, and when I come to, it's morning and I'm back in my bed. I figure it's a damn dream, but when I walk out to the living room I see freaking sweaty handprints on the inside of the windows right at the spot where I saw the damn thing from. Anybody knows what this was all about? Whatever it was, it didn't feel like it wanted to harm me. Quite the opposite actually. Before that happened I lived with this constant fear of death, but after it got a lot better. The encounter somehow taught me to accept death.
The world is a prison carefully concocted to produce beings capable of more and more exquisite forms of suffering. It has enticements that lure them in with promises to stay, so that they will continue to reproduce and expand the magnitude of this suffering, and so that they will combat one another over imagined difficulties and problems. As the fighting escalates, no matter in what direction, the creators of this world win. Earth is somewhere between hell and a factory farm. There's no way out, and, true to the creator's designs, people will meet you with either utter disbelief or outright disdain if this is suggested to them. The purpose of a world is to have a population of willing slaves who do not even know they are slaves or willing, who will do the creator's work for them, and emitting suffering as a smokestack belches waste. Alien creepy stories, your own or some stories you've been told. Here's mine. I have a beach apartment close to a tropical rainforest that is said to be inhabited by aliens. This forest is famous for multiple reports of alien sightings and activities, missing people, etc. In September 2010, my next-door neighbor was staying with his wife at their apartment and they were the only ones in the entire beach apartment complex. One night, he was watching TV and ready to go to sleep. He got into bed and turned the lights off. The room was pitch black, but he couldn't fall asleep. He was lying there awake, with his head towards the ceiling, and suddenly felt a presence at his side, staring at him. He was too in shock to find out what it was. Suddenly, he sees the silhouette moving towards the front of his bed, and as it walks by, it is clear there is something in the room with them because it walks in front of the TV's cable box and it covers for a second the time shown in a green light. He notices the figure walking towards his wife. He quickly grabs his phone to illuminate the room, only to find out it was gone.
Some years ago a video was going around here that still haunts me to this day. I've seen a lot of gore/snuff videos. I don't like such things, but my curiosity gets the better of me, in my time, but there was just something strange about this one. There's a shot of a crowd of people in a dark room, talking and socializing. I'm not sure what kind of place it was, but I do remember picture frames of some sort. A muffled voice is sort of narrating things, but it's too distorted to make out. The camera focuses on a single woman, dressed in white. She appears to be complaining to a friend about something, looking nervous, before it happens. Her head splits open, as though shot by a gun. The crowd starts screaming and wailing as several people tend to the corpse, whose head is falling apart, bits of flesh flapping about. I could never forget the screaming and gore. But things get worse. Something starts spilling from her head, some clear fluid, before a black object bursts out from what's left of the head. The video was too grainy and dark to make out what it was, but it was on the floor, moving in a frightening manner, like a newborn animal. The video shakes violently for a moment before ending. I don't think I ever want to actually see it again, but it's been haunting me so much lately. Any help would mean a lot to me.
A degenerated VHS dub was discovered in the university library containing 5 minutes of inexplicable amateur footage. In one continuous shot, the camera momentarily focuses on a doorway on the north wall of a living room before the operator climbs outside of the house through a window to show the exterior white clapboard. The camera then moves inside the house through a second window, completely circling the doorway and so proving, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that insulation or siding is the only possible thing this doorway could lead to. A hand appears in the frame and pulls open the door, revealing a narrow black hallway at least 10 feet long. The camera begins to move closer, threatening to actually enter it. A voice can be heard, "Don't you dare go in there again, Davy," to which another voice adds, "Yeah, not such a hot idea."
He dug the hole a little deeper. He'd been digging all night, but the hole never seemed deep enough. "Roy, come on. We're all going to the bar," his colleague shouted over. "Nah. I'm all good, man. You guys go without me." His workmates looked puzzled at the response. Roy was not one to miss a drink. They left without him. Roy was pleased to be left alone for this kind of work. He'd been getting strange messages in his dreams. At first he didn't believe them, but after their sheer persistence he decided to investigate. Roy had been told that he was special. He was the one to usher in a new age of peace on Earth. After what seemed to be a few fruitless hours of digging, Roy finally saw the hole was deep enough. As he looked down at the ground, bright, white light shone out from the hole. He knew he'd found them, the angels trapped under the Earth's crust. He dropped to his knees to peer through the crack, and immediately knew his folly. He stood up and reached for his shovel to cover his crimes, but it was too late. He'd freed them all. They were true to their word. Roy had ushered in a new age of peace, just not for humanity.
The two men parked up in the car park of the abandoned mall. It had been shut down due to excessive levels of asbestos used in the building. Now not many people come here. Even the homeless don't like to come near, at least not the ones that value their lives. The two men had been silent for what seemed like a millennia, and they would both remain that way for a while longer. They were waiting for something. The tension was tangible. Both men looked solemn. The silence was broken by a deafening clap of thunder. The sky illuminated. A craft appeared above them. They felt the strength of the beam that they were more than familiar with. The hosts were long dead, but their bodies felt comfortable. This town would do.
Daddy, I had a bad dream. You blink your eyes and pull up on your elbows. Your clock glows red in the darkness. It's 3:23. Do you want to climb into bed and tell me about it? No, Daddy. The oddness of the situation wakes you up more fully. You can barely make out your daughter's pale form in the darkness of your room. Why not, sweetie? Because in my dream, when I told you about the dream, the thing wearing mommy's skin sat up. For a moment, you feel paralyzed, you can't take your eyes off of your daughter. The covers behind you begin to shift.
Overtime. Some people use it as extra cash, a bonus maybe? Some people use it as a lifeline. They need it to keep their heads above the water, to feed their loved ones, to keep a roof over them. These are the people who work all hours God sends. You see them when you get to work. You see them when you leave. Always in their booth working away. You go for a smoke? They are working. You go for lunch? They are working. Invite them for a drink after work one Friday? No, they are working. Have you ever seen them leave? Have you ever seen them stand up? Are you sure they're really there? Think about it.
A few months ago, a friend of mine, who is an up-and-coming nature photographer, decided to spend a day and night alone in the woods outside of our town. She wanted to get photos of the woods and wildlife as naturally as she could for her portfolio. She wasn't afraid of being alone, as she had camped by herself many times before. She set up a tent in the middle of a small clearing and spent the day taking pictures. She filled up 4 rolls of film on that trip, but something was strange about them. What she saw in those pictures has stayed with her ever since, and she is still trying to recover from the trauma that have caused her. Almost every picture was accounted for, save for one picture in each roll of film. These pictures were of her, asleep in her tent in the middle of the night.